Hi everybody, I hope everyone's well and happy. We're just waiting for quite a few people to log in. There's quite a number of people on the list, so we're probably a little minute or two early, so not a problem. If you've got any questions or you're here, just drop a question or something in the chat box so I know that you're here and I can see what's going on from there. And I'm still waiting for Paul. Hopefully Paul Jacobs can hear me now as well, and as he's part of the attendees. Is he there? Paul, can you hear me now?
I can hear you, Howard. How marvellous.
Good. So that means everyone else can hear you, Paul, as well. That's brilliant.
Excellent.
Right. The attendees are flying up, which is good. Can everybody just make sure, so I understand everyone can see the screen? If you can just either drop me a message or drop me a line in the chat boxes or in the question boxes, so I can see what's going on. To make sure you've all got a view of the screen. So you should have an introduction screen, Love Work Life, 60-minute mentor emergency service with Paul and myself. Good. Okay, so I think most people are now on. Yes, we can see the screen. Good. Questions are flying through. That's really, really good. Okay, so I think most people are now here that were saying they're going to attend. So welcome to Love Work Life 60-minute mentor emergency service section. I think Paul and I thought, in this current climate, that it was wise to start to try help people of all levels and ages in the recruitment market to understand what's going on within the marketplace and understand how the market is starting to move and what we can do to affect that from there. We've worked very hard with ourselves to sort of bring together everything that we've learnt over our careers to basically help people manage through these unprecedented times. But both Paul and I have seen quite a number of downturns in the marketplace. We've seen a number of strange things that have happened in the marketplace, and it's how you react to those and what you can do to come back faster and stronger when the market turns. So the idea of the webinar is what we're going to do is we are going to basically have a conversation around the various questions that we posed out. What we want you to do is ask questions as we go along so we know what's going there. So you ask a question and then we'll incorporate those questions and answer those questions for you. So keep the questions flowing, keep everything going on from there. If you've got anything that you really want to ask, I say put it up on the screen from there. So Paul, let's kick off. So for those who don't know Paul is 42 years in the recruitment industry. He spent most of his time as the MD of Office Angels. 8 years ago, he set up Love Work Life Consulting, and he's been working with numbers of recruitment agencies across the country and across Europe and the States, helping grow and develop their businesses. So Paul, what I want to do is hand over to you and sort of say, methods of mentoring and supporting staff. Give me your views of what you think we should be doing and how we could be handling that in this moment in time.
Well, firstly, thanks, Howard. I hope everybody can hear me. You can hear me okay, Howard?
I can hear you fine, Paul, yes.
Excellent news. Well, hopefully that's true with everybody else. So thank you. Yeah, just to reiterate, I've been in this industry for about 200 years, which is why when you see the first picture of me on those slides, you can see how wizened and ancient I'm now looking. So I started in the mid-70s, and as Howard said, I was the MD of Office Angels as a board director of Adecco, COO of Hudson, and we've been running this business, Love Work Life Consulting, since 2009, actually. So quite some period of time, both the UK and abroad. So this is unprecedented times we're going through. Everybody in our industry sector and indeed globally, of course, are experiencing something that was unimaginable even 2 or 3 weeks ago. It's placing enormous strain on all business owners, regardless of whether they're in our industry or elsewhere. And I think it requires a tremendous amount of resilience from us all, mental strength, but also I think, and it sounds an odd thing to say, is an opportunity, and we'll talk about this, for us to review the way we operate our businesses and consider how longer term we can start to reshape, remodel the way we work and the way our people work, and take advantage of what I think will become a very buoyant market towards the back end of this year and certainly into 2021. There's a question that Howard's raised here, methods of mentoring and supporting your staff's good mental well-being while remote working is a really important one. I've been reminded that over the last few days when I've spoken to various clients of the fact that they have staff who live on their own, that they live in, bedsits, flats, even, one bedroom areas. And those guys are, like the rest of us now, in lockdown, unable to leave their homes for very long. Maybe I think it's once a day for a bit of exercise, occasional trips to shops to get essential items. So a lot of our people are feeling very isolated at the moment. And what might seem to be a bit of a novelty, because it's only just begun and we've got weeks ahead of us at the moment, is something that could turn into something far more serious in the coming weeks. And people, I think, are going to need us as business leaders to be consistently and constantly communicating with them in a variety of different ways. And I don't think it's just purely the work issues that we all need to be talking to our people about. I think it's a lot to do with socializing. So keeping close to our people, making sure they feel part of our team, the sort of things that we talk about daily in the office. We can't talk about the football or the rugby results at the moment, but we can certainly talk about other fairly everyday things, fairly normal everyday things to each other. And you'll have to do that when you speak to them, because it's important. We come to work to socialize as part and parcel of the reason we've come to an office. And I think now that we don't have that space, we need to be aware of the fact that people need that human interaction. So when you're speaking to your guys going forward, if you have staff, then I think it's really important not just to be talking to them about work issues and how we're going to work through the day, but also just make sure you're aware of their state of mind, how they're feeling, and of course their health. How well are they feeling? I've just seen, I don't know if anyone else has seen this news flash, Prince Charles has got coronavirus. So this can affect everybody and is affecting everybody. It's likely to affect some of our people too. So keep close to the good health and mental well-being of our people going forward remotely. And I think you can do that via all the things that I know you're all using at the moment. So Zoom, WhatsApp. There's one everyone seems to be latching onto called House Party. You can use that and have innumerable people join you on that. Come back to that point in a minute, but we can use Skype and all the other methods that thankfully we have now to communicate with people visually as well as from an audible perspective.
I think some great points there, Paul, some really good points on what's doing. I'm really interested in what sort of the people on the webinar are doing with regards to that social interaction. I think it's really important that, we try carry on business as normal, and therefore having a morning meeting, a mid-afternoon, sort of midday meeting, and then an evening wash-up is really important. And whether that be over Zoom, Teams, House Party, whatever it is, I think it's important that we keep that social interaction going constantly. But I think there's more than just that, because that's very much about the running of the business. And I think part of that camaraderie of recruitment is in what we do during the day and how we socialize during the day. So I'm interested to hear what people have been doing. I've spoken to a number of agencies. One guy's got all his team every lunchtime doing the Joe Wicks stuff. I've got other people doing fitness stuff. I've got other people doing social beers where they're all having a beer together over the net, etc. So I'm really interested to see what sort of people on the webinar are actually doing with that, because I think it's important that we keep that social interaction together, because working from home, especially if you're living on your own, etc., it can be a lonely place at times. So I'm interested on that. I think also, Paul, you started to touch then on running of the business and running of people. I'm very much for that. It should be almost as business as usual, but obviously it's not usual, because obviously everyone's working from home, so it's different things. So how would you look at handling working from home if you were managing those people?
So, in my opinion, it's business as usual, which sounds a bit most peculiar thing to say under the current circumstances. But I think that means, and I'm sure you guys listening are doing exactly this: getting up at normal time, getting to your desk, inverted commas, and being ready for work, dressed for work, not sitting there in your pajamas or your dressing gown, but really be ready for work, being professional. And I think that applies to our people. So we need discipline, and we need discipline in our working environment in the same way that we had it in the spaces that we occupied prior to this week. That means I feel that you need a pretty rigid method of communicating. I don't mean that to sound too draconian, but I mean to say that we have our morning scrums. At the time we would have had them anyway, when everybody was in the office together, and you have those communal conference calls or video calls at a certain point, first thing in the morning, call it 8:30, call it 9 o'clock, and that you have those mid-morning or midday scrums, and again the mop-ups at the end of the day. In addition to which, and this is back to the earlier point, I think you need one-on-one conversations with every member of staff every day. And in the case of people who are fairly new to your business, people that have only just recently joined, that you're teaching, you're developing at this stage, they need a lot of care and attention, as they would have had from you were they sitting in the office with you. So without wishing to overuse the phrase micromanagement, I do think with those guys, you may need to call them every hour, on the hour, or have them call you. But for the people that you've worked with for some period of time, that you trust, who perform very well for you, who have a mature, confident attitude, those guys, once a day is probably sufficient, maybe twice at most. So you can leave them alone, trusting that they're working hard, doing their very best. A point worth making here as well, of course, is that you can only manage what you can monitor. So, using your CRM system, making sure the guys are entering everything on the system is vitally important, because at the end of the day, as we start using this time to contact candidates, spending lots of time talking to candidates, doing our best to keep in touch with clients, that information, that data needs to be logged on the system. And my view about this is pretty much the same as when we work in an office, and that is simple. If it's not on the system, it didn't happen. So it's no good having a mop-up with a colleague at the end of the day who says, I've made X number of calls, I've had the X number of conversations, but it's not logged. I think your attitude has to be, if it's not on the system, we can't talk about it, and you can't be very happy about it. It has to be recorded. Sorry, Howard, I think you're about to say something.
Yeah. I think all that is absolutely right, and what we should be doing. I think it's very interesting touching on that one-on-one point, because I'm a firm believer that, in this time, everyone knows as a manager who your people are within the business, who are pessimistic and who are optimistic. So you'll know how people will be responding to certain things. So you'll see the person that is uber positive, knows how to fight their way out of a corner, and they will sit and fight their way out of a corner and drive that way out of the corner. But you've also got those people who are maybe a little bit pessimistic and everything is, the world is going to end at any moment now. It's those people that we need to really keep hold of, excuse me, and those people we need to be talking to more, because obviously when they're outside the office and they don't have that positive influence sat next to them, helping them sort of come over that sort of a initial sort of thought of woe is me, then they're going to be in that sort of isolation point, and they're going to be manifesting on those thoughts constantly, and they're going to get bigger and bigger. So we've got to look at the well-being of the staff and how they're doing, so we're making more contact with them and working with them. Hence why that morning meeting, afternoon meeting, and evening meeting is important from a business point of view, but that one-on-ones and that socializing meeting is even more important, because it helps people sort of, I said, break up that day, break up the monotony, and break up their thoughts. If they are having those sort of thoughts of woe is me, that you can break those thoughts up and really work on that. The other side that you touched on there, which I think is very important, is training. As everyone sort of knows within recruitment, what you tend to do is you're sat there making calls, you're listening to other people all the time, and you're picking up really good habits, or potentially picking up poor habits, depending on what your office is like. But you're picking up good habits from there. Obviously, then when you're sat on your own, you haven't got that opportunity to listen to other people, hear other people have success. So that socializing element is important to celebrate that success, whether it is, let's say all at 11 o'clock, we'll all have a quick Zoom meeting, and if you've made a placement, done anything really good, let's get it out there to get positivity out there. But that training element, again, of bringing everybody in for a training session, whether it be online, etc., so people can actually hear what people are doing every day, what their wins are, and how they're working on that, and then developing their skills. Because recruitment, in my belief, is now at a very, very critical point in its sort of history, and I think it will change hugely when we come out of this situation, and therefore training your staff to be up and running to cope with that change is really important. And you and I, Paul, were talking on various circuits 2 years ago about the digital wave is coming, and you have a choice of either swimming out into the ocean and riding the wave, or sitting on the beach and letting the wave come straight over the top of you and sweep you away. Well, that wave has suddenly been massively accelerated. I was talking to GoWebinar yesterday and GoMeeting, and they were saying their business has increased by 800% in the last 2 weeks. So you can suddenly see how everybody's now jumped on that digital market space and what's going on within that digital market space. And that is going to become the new norm. It was dripping into the recruitment market over a period of time. It has now accelerated into that marketplace. So training on using that technology and how that technology can help you bring your business forward is really, really important. It also helps on another point that I want to bring across to you, Paul, is communication. How do you think communication should work in this type of marketplace?
Well, I think I'm going to sort of address that question from sort of almost 3 different ways. So communication, I think, is about the way we as a team, managers, leaders, and our staff communicate with each other. Extremely importantly, it's going to be how we communicate with candidates and clients during this period. I would argue very strongly that in all the years I've worked in recruitment, there has never been a better time to be in contact with candidates. They're all at home. Whenever we try and reach candidates, generally, we struggle during the working day because they don't take the calls. We send them text, SMS messages. We try everything we can to reach people, and it's often quite a struggle. Whereas at the moment, of course, everybody's at home. They're in this lockdown period. What a brilliant opportunity for every single person in the business to be on the phone, contacting candidates off of our database, establishing what they're feeling about the current situation, where they want to be going in their jobs going forward once we come out of the situation, helping them to develop, redevelop, improve their CVs, understanding far more from them about what's going on in their existing employers' businesses, and what other recruitment businesses they're using for a variety of different methods and so forth. So communication, I think, is, in terms of candidates, is just an amazing opportunity, so that we absolutely stock up our talent pool. By the time we reach the end of this situation, we're in an amazing position to start marketing great candidates to employers who I think will be coming back towards the back end of this year, certainly from about June, July onwards, looking for staff. So I think that's a great opportunity. Equally with clients who we don't have access to outside of work generally. We don't have their mobile numbers. We don't have their Skype addresses easily. But I think if you can extract that information from clients, get them to give you their personal details in that sense, connecting with them during this period is a good idea. And I would come about that not from the perspective of pitching to them, looking for new business, because I don't think that's the right attitude at the moment. I think it's more about trying to offer help, trying to be caring, supportive towards them, being kind and decent. And I think that if you do that, you extend that hand of help, that goodwill now, then the business will come back at you 10 times over when they're in a position to provide it. They'll remember how excellent, how superb, how supportive you've been during this period. So I think the communication with clients is a challenge, perhaps more than candidates. But as I say, if you can get their details and reach out to them, just check how they're getting on, I think that's a great opportunity. But back to communicating with their own people. And picking up on Howard's point, I think using all forms of media here. I mean, phone calls are fine, using webinars are fine, but you do want visual communication with people, and use and mix it up. I think we can use conference facilities to get everybody involved, through things like Skype or Zoom. But again, things like house party, beers on Friday evening at 6 o'clock. Get everybody on the house party. Tell them to charge their glasses, if that's the expression, and have a giggle with them, as you would have done when they were in the office. So open up the supposed beer fridge at 6 o'clock on Friday, and celebrate the successes, whatever they are, or however small those successes have been during the course of the previous 5 days. Enjoy the moment and enjoy the success that you're having. And I think it's absolutely vital that we as leaders keep the morale of our people up. This isn't going to last forever. It is extraordinary, but it isn't going to last forever. Everything comes to pass. And we want to keep on board the great people in our businesses, so that when business comes back, and let's all hope and pray it's not too far away, we're raring to go. And the guys that you looked after during this period through these various forms of communication, remember how supportive and loyal you'd been towards them, and then repay you back in so many ways in relation to developing business and producing revenue streams. So communication is vital here.
So I think there's some great points there. So before I move on to sort of the next topic that we want to cover, just to cover that topic off, what we're saying is that really, the way of mentoring staff is changing, because obviously they are not in, the office 24/7, and the way things will change across the period of time will be probably forever. But we need to start thinking now about being more interactive online, morning, mid-afternoon and evening meetings, having genuine one-to-one sessions with people, making contact with those people who we know are ultra positive, and how we can help them be even more positive, but focus on those people who are glass half empty type people, and focus on them to really help them get through this period of time. Training is absolutely paramount on the new technologies that are coming in, but also the training on basic recruitment is really important. How we communicate across the piece needs to be verbally, visually and technically, so everybody understands. And what I'd say to that communication piece is, one thing that I constantly did when I was managing large teams was I would always go and speak to one or two of the people after I'd sent a communication out to make sure they understood it. If they didn't understand it, then the communication was the problem, not what I was saying to them. So I had to change the way it was communicated so they actually understood it. So again, with people working from home, they'll maybe take other things, and they'll take opportunities to hide. So communication is really important. That discipline and keeping the discipline exactly the same is really important. And I've worked from home for quite some time, Paul, when I'm not on client site, and that discipline is important. So I'm in the office at 7:30 every morning, which sounds a bit early, but I don't have a commute for an hour to get to work, which is great. So I may as well use that hour and use it properly. I get changed, I have an office locked away somewhere so I don't get interrupted from the kids and the dog, etc. So that keeps me sort of sound. I make sure that I'm disciplined, and I write not to-do lists, because I don't think to-do lists when you're on your own are really sort of that inspiring. I write success lists. So what am I going to succeed at every day? And I then try and put that success list to the top of everything, and I make sure that I'm ticking it off as I go. So I know that I've had a good day. I do not do my work in my PJs. I do not do my work in the lounge, because I know the TV will win, and I've got to make sure that I'm there. And the big thing that's coming out of this is the social interaction now needs to massively improve right across the businesses, because it's now online, to make sure everyone is upbeat and everyone is keep working as well as they can do in this period of time. So that social action is really important for the well-being of our staff across the business. So when we sort of look at that, Paul, the next question that we sort of wanted to talk about and cover was very simple. We wanted to sort of look at forward thinking and strategic planning to ensure the business is fit and healthy for when the market returns. And we've had a long conversation with all our clients, or most of our clients, about this. Give me this sort of upshot of what you've been hearing from your clients already and what you think people should be doing?
Okay, so these are weird times. We all spend time in our businesses looking forward. We talk about 3-year plans. We talk about the financial year plans and so forth. And yet here we find ourselves in a position, remarkably, where we're literally planning day by day. So I think, in a sense, we have to have dual plans. I think that for most small businesses, SMEs, the ability, the agility to hop from foot to foot, as it were, to make a decision, enact that action very rapidly is a massive advantage. I worked for the largest recruitment businesses in the world. Adecco was the largest recruitment business in the world, and I worked for Hudson, also one of the largest. And trying to get decisions made and dealt with and enacted in a very large corporation takes a lot of work and time and diplomacy, and can often run into weeks, if not months. Whereas if you're a small business, you have your meeting with your guys, you make a decision, you go back to your desks, or in this case, back to wherever you're sitting in your homes, and you get on with it. And within a course of just a few hours, you've shifted the direction of your business. And so I think we have two things at play now. How do we continue to keep our businesses moving in the right direction, keep them safe during this very dangerous period, against how we go forward and make sure that our goals, our dreams, our plans are still available to us. So I kind of feel like, it may be just a personal thought, but I think like this is a moment where, for reasons way beyond our control, somebody has put their finger on the pause button. So it's all paused. Your television screen is frozen. And at this point, we don't know when the play button is going to be pushed and we can start moving again. We're all very much hoping it's not going to be for very long. Lockdown, three weeks, perhaps a bit more. But I think most of us believe that one way or another, business will slowly be getting back into gear within about 12 weeks. Let's hope and pray that's the case. When that happens, I think that we go back to reviewing where we want to go to, how are we going to move the business to our targets and goals over the next 2-3 years. And to pick up Howard's point, I think one of the valuable things we'll gain from this extraordinary time is the opportunity to reflect on what was going well. We'll come back to this in a moment. What was going well in our businesses, what wasn't going well, and how we can remodel our companies to take advantage and move forward in what I think will be the new world of work. Because one of the things that I think will come out of this situation is the realization that actually it's perfectly possible for people to work from home, be highly productive, work, I just kind of hesitate, odd hours, in other words, start early, finish early, start later, leave later. We will look back, I think, after this and wonder why the hell we ever brought people from all parts of the city to our office at exactly the same time and then sent them home at the same time. In fact, as I'm saying it, it sounds anarchic. The truth is that I think we'll emerge realizing that people can work from home if they choose to, 2-3 days a week, 1 day a week, whatever is convenient, whatever is helpful. It will mean we'll look at office space, for example. Do we need the same number of desks that we had before? Can we exist on fewer desks and cut our costs on office space, office costs? It will enable all of us, I think, to start, and as it's in our name, thinking of our work-life balance. Because I think that whilst there's some lovely upsides to being in work and working with great people and enjoying the fun and the challenges that we'll have together, equally, most of us have limited time at home, and maybe we neglect some of the things that we value so highly, i.e. our families, because we're working so hard. Working from home gives you the opportunity to not only work hard, but as Howard said, means you don't have to get up and get in your car or get on a tube or train and travel. You can carry on working, and you get more time to see the people that you love around you. So that balance, I think, becomes a healthier one. I think that we'll emerge from all of that.
I think there's some great points there. I think, I look at this in a very strict way that you've got two sides to your business. You've got the running your business, actually the functional side of running your business, and then running your sales organization from there. And I think that part of running your business is what you're talking about there. I think the way of working is changed massively. And, where before when I've spoken to clients, I created a company that had unlimited holidays and no working hours. So you could come to work when you want, you had as many holidays as you want. And I found people came to work earlier, stayed later, took less holidays. And it wasn't because I was suddenly offering something that was just now there's unlimited holidays, you can take as many as you want. What I was actually doing was putting trust in the staff to actually make their own decisions and how they work. So if they didn't want to come to work on that morning, they're fine, they didn't have to come to work. But if they were working from home, they were working from home. And that goes back to the question or the comment that you made a little bit earlier about if you can track it, then you can sort of see what people are doing. But it means that you can trust people, and trust becomes a whole new element of business. I speak to so many business owners who say, I wouldn't trust my staff to do that. I wouldn't trust, well, we've now been forced to trust our staff to work from home. And so it's a great opportunity to create something that could be really revolutionary within the recruitment business and business as a whole, because I think it will change the way people work. So maybe we've got to start looking at the way that we recruit people into our industries later on, the type of profile person that we're looking for, because working from home is a very, very different thing from working in the office. And maybe you can have a blend of both, people working in the office, people working from home, etc., etc. But giving that people the choice is really important. So I think that running of the side of the business is paramount. The flip side to that is what we started to talk about earlier before the webinar, was about the sales strategy. And I've just finished a conference call with a client now on talking about the sales strategy, and her comment was she was scared that to put her team into BD mode and have her team BDing clients because she felt it was a little bit insensitive, wasn't the right time to be doing things from there, and how would clients perceive that. And I completely and utterly do not hold that situation. I think it should be the other way around. But how we approach our clients now is more important. I asked simple questions of the person. I said, right, okay, if you can answer these questions honestly about all your clients, then you've got some really good, interesting things. And the questions I asked was, do you know how much your client spends on recruitment in your niche? Do you know what the threats are from within the business that will stop you recruiting? Are you in touch with the person with the money, the authority, and the need, the man? And if you are in touch with them, is it the person that actually has the authority and the need? Are they the genuine person? Do you know what their projects are for 2020 and 2021? Do you know their legal and HR perspective and how they deal with recruitment? Do you know what your competitors are doing? And is there an outside threat, i.e. RPO, AI, etc., internal recruitment coming into your business? And it was interesting, she couldn't answer yes to lots of those questions. And I said, now's the time to be going away and speaking to your clients to find out about that information. So if you're going on and talking to them about, we want to help you, are you recovering, how are you going to recover, what you're going to, your project to recover, etc., etc., and you know all that information, then all of a sudden you're on a different plane. You're helping your client, because what you should be then doing is going back and helping your candidates understand what's happening in the market, especially if you've got candidates that have been laid off. You might have clients that aren't laying people off but are going to be recruiting because they're going to come back quick because they've got their act together. Other clients may be dilly-dallying about, which means you can start to really focus on the clients that are going to make you money and then make an immediate impact on you, rather than focusing on any job that comes in just because you think it's urgent, irrespective of whether the client is a good client, a bad client. And I think it's important that the strategies that people start to pull together now have those strategies. So there'll be a short-term strategy, which you talked about, which is the day-to-day running of the business, because it will change daily as new things come out from the government, etc. There's that short, mid-term thinking, what's going to happen when the market comes back? and then there's a long-term thinking about what can we do with the business over a long period of time. So trusting your people is going to be really important, but also getting lots of information from different people such as ourselves, like mentors, who can help you develop those things, are equally going to be important, because the world is changing and you need to change quickly with that. So looking at that, Paul, what would you think would be the main things that people should be focusing on from a business perspective rather than a sales perspective? And then we'll cover the sales perspective afterwards.
Yeah, so I think, if we all of us think about running our businesses, and we've all fallen into this trap, we spend far too much time dealing with internal issues. It's that Pareto's law thing, and I spent the last 10, 11 years working around the country and abroad with a variety of recruitment businesses, and indeed outside of the recruitment industry, and consistently, and I was as guilty as anybody else, consistently, the majority of time is spent dealing with staff challenges or issues, and internalizing about what's going on inside the business. And I think, we've all read those management books over the years, and of course the platitudes are all about spending 70-80% of our time looking outside of the business, trying to understand what's coming round the curve, round the bend, trying to figure out what customers and candidates want from us, and trying to provide a model, try to provide services that address that. Now, I think that's a difficult challenge, particularly if you're a very small business. If you're a 1 or 2, 3-man business, it's extremely difficult, because you are, as we say, on the tools. You're running a desk, you're generating revenue, and your head's down dealing with candidates and clients and assignments and vacancies and arranging interviews and so forth, and running a business. You don't have a hell of a lot of time to look up off your desk and figure out what the world is talking about. But my goodness, I think if you think about where we're all at today, none of us could have possibly predicted that this was going to be a global pandemic, that we were going to all be sitting in our homes, having to sit tight until the worst of this subsides. And I think that for most of us, we spend a lot of time getting quite vexed and frustrated and worried about things that we perceive may be catastrophic, and yet we never really understand that the things that we least expect to happen are the things that throw us off course like this. My view about this is pretty simple. Let's focus on the things that we can control, that we can have some level of management over, and no longer worry about the things that we have no control over, because there's no point in doing that. If you can't control it, why worry about it? And if you can control it, why worry about it? So I think that looking forward, when we come out of this, part and parcel of the planning ahead is to be out far more with clients, be far more in contact with them, networking, attending events, be on the phone consistently speaking to them to find out what's going on, and spend a great deal more time with candidates, really understanding what type of services they want from you. But it's also extremely important to be looking at market intelligence, spending far more time and analysing trends, looking forward, looking at where your markets are going, and being ahead of, as best you can, everybody else. There is this old 1% analogy that says that if we can all be 1% better in every area of our business than our competitors, then we own the market. And it is a fact that we don't have to be radically different or radically better than anybody else. That in itself is extremely difficult. But if we are slightly better than everybody else, you have yourself a brilliant business. So I think the one thing that I believe going forward, as we start looking to plan ahead, will be to be looking at how we as owners, how we as managers and directors start to spend our time. How do we spend our time so that we are taking care of business as far as our own people are concerned, but we are definitely making sure that we spend a reasonably large amount of time every month networking, talking to customers, talking to trade associations, getting involved in networking events, and making our absolute business to be aware of what's coming around towards us over the next 12 to 18 months. If we don't do that, then our 2-3 year plans, the things that we are so keen to achieve our goals, our aspiration, our dreams, they don't come true. So I think maybe this moment in time is a lesson in a sense. It gives us a chance to readjust, to think again, to reflect, to consider how we start to move our business forward when we get out of this. So as I said at the beginning, I think it's a dual strategy right now. It's that Cobra meeting thing that the government do daily. You need to, and we need to be doing that on a daily basis, given the fast changing events that are swirling around us. But at the same time, it's very much about thinking about the future and how we're going to move our businesses forward and take advantage, because there will be, of the opportunities that are going to come our way.
So a lot to intake on that sort of thing. So I think what we're saying is that things change quickly, so we need to be able to make decisions now on the fly, but we need to have a strategy and a long-term strategy to make sure we cover all those things. We've got to look at the business side of it, and then we've got to look at the actual sales side of it and what we're doing in that sales side of it. And it's about communicating with our marketplace and driving that with our marketplace. The last thing I'd put on that is that, as we're trying to get money in and drive money to us, which is really important, I also think it's really important that we look at our suppliers and what we're doing with our suppliers, because they're a cost to the business as well. So you've got to think about how you treat your suppliers. So don't just jettison your suppliers. You need to be talking to your suppliers about what they're doing, how they can help you, etc. Because obviously when the market comes back, you need to make sure that your suppliers, if you're using them now, are still functioning as well. And they also need to make sure that you're functioning. So speaking to your suppliers now and having conversations about how they can help you is really important in moving forward. So we move on to the sort of last topic that we want to talk about, which was, if you could start your business again, what would you do differently? I'm interested to see what people's answers are to this as we talk about this. But so feel free to throw some answers up there so we can start to answer those questions. But if I looked at that, Paul, there's certain things that I would do differently from a business perspective. What would you look to do differently?
Well, I think it's kind of almost touching on the things I said a moment ago. I think it's kind of being much more aware of how important it is to consistently change. And I think that a lot of people, all of us actually, get pretty habitual in the way we work. We develop over a period of time habits. Some of them are really good ones, and we pass those good techniques and practices on to the people around us, and they benefit from our knowledge and experience and do very well. But we also have a terrible habit, all of us, of sticking to things that over years have less and less impact, have less and less effectiveness. It is very much that real cliche, the Einstein theory of insanity, of doing what we've always done and expecting better results. I mean, the truth is that we see declining results, and we live in a world now that with technology and AI is moving so rapidly that it's very difficult to carry on doing what we've always done and expect the same or better results. So I think when we think about what we would do differently, I would come back to the earlier points I made. I think that it is very much more about spending far more time understanding our markets and our people internally, and understanding where their development needs are, and expending time, and may I say revenue, in upskilling those people, mentoring them, training and coaching them internally and externally, because I think that's very much, for people that run a business, part and parcel of what we should be doing. We should be teachers, we should be experts, we should be guiding and mentoring people and helping them to grow and develop as human beings and as professionals. So I think spending more time in that sense is extremely important. And I think, as I've been saying, getting out of the office and spending a huge amount of time in front of clients, in front of the movers and shakers in our sectors, and really developing our profiles, which kind of leads me just briefly to talk about how important marketing is. Back in the day, the only kind of organizations that ever had marketing facilities were the big companies. And now, of course, even the smallest of businesses consider having a marketing manager or a marketing assistant essential to the growth and development of their companies because of the advent of social media and other methods of platforms that enable us to communicate and make us look like a much bigger business than we necessarily are. And I think that one of the things that I think we should all think about is, how do we promote our brand? How do we grow our company? How do we make our business look and behave differently from others? And I think that that's so important. And even now, as I work around the country with different recruitment businesses, Howard does, I'm still sometimes surprised, and I'll use that word advisedly, that so many companies still do not market themselves. That what they tend to do is receive vacancies and send CVs out and arrange interviews or send out contractors or temps and act as that kind of service, which I think is dying and has been dying for some period of time. I think we have to build our brand. We have to be aware of other services that we can offer our clients going forward, whether that is support on HR matters, whether it's training and mentoring for them, for their staff. There's a number of areas that we can develop as businesses that give us a much broader opportunity to be trusted advisors to our customers, to our clients, and provide other revenue streams. And so I think when we're looking forward and how we could do things differently, I think we've got to come away from this view that we're here merely to find candidates for jobs, because we already know that there are methods for candidates and clients that enable them to connect with each other without us in between. And those methods are very obvious, plus internal recruitment teams, of course. So I think we have this great opportunity now to expand and develop our businesses going forward. Oh, Howard?
I think there's some great points there. And I think the big point to me is the comment there about you can only affect what you can control. So don't worry about what you can't affect. And I think what I've been looking at is, when you look at your business now, how stable is your business? How how movable is your business going forward? This rigidity that we have of staying in the same market constantly and not looking at down into the future to see what new markets are coming up and where we can start to make inroads into new markets, I think that is really important. If you start to think about, if you'd started a recruitment business again, the first thing you'd start about is, what market should I go into? Is it the right market? You then have to do that amount of due diligence on that market to see whether or not that market has sustainability, it can generate money, there are candidates in that marketplace, but also what's your competition like in that marketplace. And if you constantly had that sort of view outside your business, looking for that new market, looking for that new edge for your business, then as your original market starts to dry up and churn, you can start to introduce that new market into the business, and you start to then refresh your pipeline constantly with clients that are bigger. And that includes not just looking at the markets, looking at how we recruit. How many recruiters are still 100% contingency and don't touch retained? How many different ways of retained business are they doing? And I think as the market changes over the next 5 years, and I think ABSCO were quoting last year that 30% of every placement in the UK was made by an RPO. But if that's the case, that's really worrying for small recruitment agencies. If you then think about the amount of companies that are bringing in-house recruitment in and bringing AI in to help them recruit, again, eating at our core market, our bread and butter market, our low-hanging fruit markets, we need to start thinking, what can we do that's differently, and what can we provide to a client that's differently? So just providing a bum on a seat, to me, is almost becoming old school. What else can we provide? Can we find different ways to price our service that we actually get paid for our service, rather than being paid when we are successful and we are in competition? Because we all know that clients have this mysterious thinking that, well, if I put 4 or 5, 10 agencies on it, when they're all going to compete against each other, when we basically don't. We tend to shy away from that business, or we should be shying away from that business. So we've got to educate our clients, I think, a little bit more about what's happening. So it's our education for ourselves about what's coming down the line, what's the future look like with regards to our niches, can we grow something, and then looking at what we do with our clients, what can we sell to our clients in a slightly different manner that makes us more sticky within that client and generates revenue from the get-go rather than generates revenue at the end of the process. And we all know that if the national average is right, that we only fill 2 out of 10 jobs, that means 80% of your time is wasted in your job because you're not filling those roles. Can we reduce that and make it 50% of our time, 60%, 80% of the time we fill roles? That means we've got to work with our clients in a very, very different way. So if I'd start a business again, I'd be looking at different ways that I could price into my clients, and I'd be looking at markets that are expanding and growing now where my competition is poor, and look at those sort of things. Anyone else got thoughts on that? Paul, you got thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, as I'm listening to you, Howard, I'm also wondering, I can't see questions coming up, but I know you can. So are there people raising questions as we're speaking right now?
We've had a couple of questions. Joey commented out, that's a very tricky question. He said, I've been planning a bigger business from the start and would have looked at what infrastructure and setup is required further down the line once headcount grows. And we've been very reactive on that front. And I think that's a great thing, Joey, that, you know, any business, if you're a one-man, two-man business, you shouldn't be thinking like a one-man, two-man business. You should be thinking like a 30, 40-man business and have the infrastructure to manage 30, 40 people. So that when you plug a new person in, you're not having to plug your tech and redesign your tech around that. So always look at technology and look at what can actually help you as you grow your business. Because I think there's going to be an opportunity once we come out of this situation that some businesses may be able to expand really, really quickly. And if you're ready to expand, then you're in a really good position. So I think that's a great question there, Joey, that you're right. Setting the infrastructure up instantly to make sure it works is really important. And as we're now working from home, 2-3 years ago, I was awarded something from Bullhorn with regards to technology and about putting technology into the heart of your business, which means that I could open my business anywhere. All I needed was a laptop that had internet access, that I could get onto my CRM and get onto my emails and get onto the web. And that is all I needed to run my business, because what I had attached to the CRM was everything else that I needed to run my business ran through that. So that was from a finance point of view, from a job posting point of view, everything came into that business. So I didn't have to leave anything. I only had one login. I had to log into that system and that was it. And I think it's making things simple for your consultants, it's making it easy for them to work from home, makes your technology so much more compact and so much more robust for the future. And I think that is what we've got to be sort of looking at, you know, how we grow sort of our infrastructure from within the business. So when we plug new people in, it becomes easy to do. So when we get to 20, we should be thinking like a 100-man business. When we get to 100, we should be thinking about a 300-man business.
I mean, just to pick up on that point, Howard, I think it's true. You know, when you start a business, obviously you have limited funding generally, so you do it on a shoestring. In fact, it's not just our businesses. I mean, some of the biggest corporations in the world today, the ones we know and love, started in garden sheds and garages. People like Microsoft and Walt Disney, for example. So every business was a small business once. Every big business, was a small business once. The thing is, you have to have, as you've just rightly said, you have to have a view that you are going to be a bigger business, and you start right from the very beginning thinking and acting like one. So as you've just said, in terms of the infrastructure, for sure, I mean, obviously within reason in terms of your budget, but certainly in terms of your planning, you're looking ahead and thinking about where you're going to be and how you're going to, and what you're going to look like, even from day one, and act that way, act like a bigger business. And I'm back to my marketing point. The wonderful thing about today's channels, media channels, is that every company can look like a huge company if they're effective in that space, if they're effectively managing and marketing themselves and making themselves an attractive brand. And I think that's something that was never there. Even 10 years ago, it would have been impossible to have competed and look different from the large companies. But these days, I'm most impressed generally with the marketing and brand development of small businesses rather than the large companies. If you look at websites, for example, which I've been doing quite a bit recently, some of the most exciting and interesting websites are not at the big corporations, which I often find extremely dull and boring. They tend to be the small companies that are doing things differently, that look and sound differently. So I think this point is a valid one. Think like a bigger business, act like a bigger business from day one, and really be very bold about your brand. Separate yourself from the pack. Don't look and act the same as everybody else. Don't try and please everybody. That's impossible. Find your niche, develop your niche, and be proud enough to be different. Do things differently. Take risks. Not ridiculous risks, but take calculated risks.
I think
That way you'll have a
caveat that as
chance.
well, Paul, on that. I think Joey asked the question, who are the companies are doing this type of thing? I think a lot of the top 10 recruitment agencies, the small companies, are doing that because they're so agile. You know, we've had conversations with some of our past employers who are just so slow. I think I described Adecco in 2005 as a slow lumbering elephant that can't move the marketplace. And what will happen, the marketplace will bring it to its knees. And, you know, as the smaller market moves far more agile. So I think, Jay, to answer your question, is there's lots of small agencies that are doing this at the moment from a marketing perspective, from a technology perspective, and they're leading the market and they're taking market share from some of the big suppliers. And we've got to sort of take note of that and say, what can we do that gives us a technical edge, that gives us more time to speak to candidates and clients. So there's lots of people doing that, and it's about doing that properly. And it's working with people that understand how you can do that and what things you can do to introduce into your business. Not all tech is going to be revolutionary for you, so don't just go buy any tech. It's finding what tech is right for your business, what's right for your market, and right for your clients, your consultants, and your candidates from there. Emily asked another question here. She said, if I ask an out-and-out question to other recruiters on this webinar, my question is, how is everyone handling the situation with clients? Are they looking to renegotiate payment terms during this time? I've had clients say they will pay, but non-previously agreed timelines. You know, they want to come in into a new agreement. And I think there's two sides to that question, Emily, there is that you've got to sort of look at it and say, if you're chasing debt, chase debt as you would normally chase debt. They're going to be chasing their debtors exactly the same as you are, but then you have to have a conversation at some time if they can't pay on what sort of terms that you would put in. Some clients will come to you now and start to negotiate and renegotiate terms. Depending on what you're doing with that client and how much that client is worth to you, then you have to consider why you're negotiating and what you're negotiating. I think as the market comes back and what we talked about earlier, building strategy plans around each individual client to know how much they spend on recruitment, how many people they are looking to recruit on projects over the next period of time is really important, because then you can start to actually push into that client and look at more cost-effective ways to deliver recruitment to them that may be more beneficial to the client as well as beneficial to you. So I think renegotiating terms isn't just about dropping a percentage here and there. It's about renegotiating the whole opportunity that you have within that client rather than looking at just a very small short-term renegotiation of terms. So I'd be chasing your debt as hard as you can, okay, but within reason. Listen to what the client has to say with regards to their business and how their business is, but then look at, if they're looking at renegotiating your whole terms, what you can get. So you need to compartmentalize your sale, look at what you do that's different from everybody else, look at how you can add benefit and value to the client and put a costing on that, and then stick to your costings. If you can reduce their I suppose supply chain and improve their supply chain, then you're going to be in a far stronger position. And that's about, you know, giving your client more value in your services. And that's not just about putting a bum on a seat. It's what other services can you offer to that client that will allow you to charge more and maintain your fee because they see it as value.
Just a quick point. I know just a quick one, because we've only got a couple of minutes left now, but just to pick up on the point about credit control, you hardly need me to tell you this, guys, but you need to be absolutely all over your credit control at the moment, because companies are going to be slow in repaying debt. Not all, but some. And we also know, and I hate to say it, but there will be some businesses that may not be around in a few months' time. So get all over it. Your cash is king. We need that. It's your money they're sitting on. It's not their money anymore. Once the transactions happen, they're sitting on your money, and once it goes beyond your payment terms, you need to be all over that. So it's a major focus. And the balance between chasing down the money and maintaining goodwill and good relationships is an important one. But at the end of the day, you need to chase your money down. So, I would get all over that. I'm sure you already are, but you have to treat this as a major priority. I've just been on, prior to this webinar, a call to the MD of a very big business, and this was a major conversation with him about this very point about chasing down debt. And he was saying that he's offered some financial incentives to get people to pay fast. So in other words, he's taken off 1-2% off of his invoice values if people pay him within 7 days, that kind of thing. Now, I'm not prescribing that, but I'm suggesting that we need to be thinking around those points, because you know, getting your money in, especially now, has never been more important. So just to pick that point up. But I think we're probably at the end now, Howard, aren't we? We've got about half.
Yeah. Anyone got any more questions? Whilst was hit sat here. There's just another question just flying through. Just to let me have a look at that. I need to put my glasses on so I can see. Lots of good people have been made redundant at this moment, meaning companies post COVID-19 can get great candidates without without free thought of ads, without recruiters' thoughts. I think, Liam, you're right there. There is going to be a lot of people being made redundant, but clients have still got to go through the same process of trying to find these people. And I think at this time, from a recruitment point of view, knowing your marketplace and speaking to your candidates and knowing who's been made redundant and being in touch with them is really important. If you can then take those candidates to market when the market comes back, then you're in a really good position. But if you wait and leave it, then it's going to be a real poor opportunity. So speak to candidates who have been made redundant and find out what they're doing, okay? Because the best ones, as Jim Roach has just come on and said, won't be made redundant. The best ones will be still employed. So you've got to work with the candidates that are going to come into the marketplace and keep working as it was before. But if you're speaking to your candidates, then you own the market. Absolutely own the market. Any other questions?
Sorry, I'll just add to that. It's always been the case, and it will be the case going forward, that our job as professional recruiters is to find the best candidates in the market, not on the market. So that's just to reinforce Howard's point.
And I think there, Lauren, you've asked the question, should we be still marketing candidates out? Yes, within reason. Pick your clients appropriately to what's going on, and that comes with knowing what they're doing and what's going on, so you can see what's going on. Another question that's come out is, what about new supplier contracts? Should we be asking for a cool-off holiday?
I think if you can, I think certainly all the clients that I have been talking to their suppliers to see if they can get some extension on credit, whether they can get a pause placed on certain services. I think you've got to go down your balance sheet. You've got to look at every cost line very carefully and establish the things you absolutely have to have, the things you value most, and maintain those. Don't cut them off. But at the same time, things that have lesser value to you, if you can cancel or put them on pause or renegotiate, you should absolutely be doing that at the moment.
I think it's on a recruitment front, it's business as usual, but with an absolute turbocharge on getting into your candidate base and getting into your client base, because there'll be still good candidates out there that are in jobs that when the situation changes will be looking for new jobs. There'll be clients out there wanting these type of people. So it's not just hitting the people made redundant, it's hitting everybody within the marketplace. Val's just asked a question is, do you think it's wise to carry on with internal recruitment and add headcount, as there will be many redundancies in the recruitment market, or is this too risky? I think it's a very interesting question, Val. I think it depends on your business. If you're in a market where you're supplying the NHS and you're supplying key workers into the key worker market at this moment, then yeah, taking headcount would be absolutely advisable, because you're going to be should be making lots of placements at this moment in time. If you're in other markets that are drying up, then you know, you need to be not risk averse, but you need to sort of take each opportunity as it comes and see what's going on. There will be recruiters out there being made redundant, so your internal policy of tracking the recruiters that you want to come and work for you is still important, and you still should be tracking those candidates and talking to them on a regular basis as you would any other candidate in the marketplace. And this is where I think recruitment sort of does it wrong. They wait till, oh, I've got a position, I'm now going to go to the market, rather than speaking to other recruiters constantly, talking to them as you would the passive market in the candidate market. You know, if you're speaking to your passive recruiters constantly, then there's a time when they may come and want to work for you. So I would carry on doing the same, but depending on your each individual case is important. If you're in the markets that are booming at the moment, then working them. If you're not, you need to think about what you're actually doing.
Just a quickie, so we're out of time, guys. I think if you've got some questions that you want to pose to Howard and me outside of this webinar, excuse me, I think that's just a normal cough, guys, just to put your mind at rest. If you want to have a conversation with me and Howard outside of this, you can see our details on the slide in front of you. Feel free to email us, to phone us, and we'll be very happy to have a conversation with you privately outside of the webinar. We have another webinar planned, which is, Howard, I believe next Tuesday, is it, at same time?
Yeah, we're same time next Tuesday. We're going to try run these webinars weekly, so we'll be one next Tuesday. We're going to decide on a topic. So again, if you're interested in putting a topic that you really want us to discuss, I'm happy to take any information from you guys and look at topics. I think it's, as we said, you know, it's changing by the hour, so the topics may change as we go. We've got to make sure that we are on point every time. You should get an email after this webinar. You know, feel free to fill in the questionnaire on there and what have you. If you liked what we've said and you think it's been absolutely beneficial to you, please put a post out on LinkedIn and yes, attach our names on LinkedIn from there. I want this to go out to every recruiter. I want to be trying to speak to every recruitment in the marketplace, because I'm absolutely passionate about now's the time to change KPI from key performance indicator to keep people informed, so we can keep our market running and keep our market driving forward. And I think it's important that we do keep people informed. It's not a time to be, you know, closing shop and saying I'm not sharing my information with other people. It's time to share information, so for the good of the environment, for the good of the recruitment market, and drive the recruitment market forward. So, you know, if you do like what we've said, by all means put something out on LinkedIn, it'd be much appreciated. I look forward to seeing you on Tuesday. For those who have got permanent teams, in 1 o'clock I am running another webinar for permanent recruiters on how to build a permanent desk in times of downturn. It'll be a genuine training session, so feel free to put as many people as you want on that. It's already getting fairly well packed at the moment, so that's good. And I look forward to seeing you again. Thanks very much for your time, much appreciated. Paul.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.